K-boom. A colossal blast of energy just leveled some random patch of wilderness. In the middle of the smoking crater, a ridiculously shiny sword. And then, a voice echoes, Leon. The kid, Leon, is practically vibrating with nerves. The voice booms again. So, tell me, do you think you've got what it takes? He stares, heart pounding. For a guy who's always just rolled with whatever crazy thing fate threw at him, he reaches out, his hand crackling as it touches the blade's aura. A holy sword just pops up and starts talking to me. Sure, why not? The sword wasn't done. Everyone deserves a fair shot, it declared. He grabs the hilt, and zap, a wave of power surges through him. Am I wrong, Leon? The sword asks, as the kid struggles to stay on his feet, looking like he just licked a power socket. Flashback to a picture-perfect day at a gorgeous castle. This world. I think to myself, as the sharp CLA-ing of two wooden swords rings out. Two guys are going at it, sparring hard. And yeah, my first thought is completely and utterly unfair. The blonde dude flicks his wrist, sending his opponent's sword flying. It lands with a thwomp in the dirt. On the ground, Leon grips his throbbing hand. Damn it, Leon. Could you at least pretend to try? You saying I'm not even a decent warm-up. Leon grumbles. The other guy just smiles. Of course not. There isn't a single person at the Royal Academy who would spar with him if not for Leon. Leon, fuming, retorts. That's because he just toys with everyone, exactly like he's doing to me right now. Leon just says, I was going easy on you. But hey, you've definitely gotten better. Leon looks like he just swallowed a lemon. That does it. Leon scrambles up, grabs his sword, and lunges like a man possessed. It's that patronizing smirk. That's what I can't stand about you. Deflecting the blows effortlessly, a bystander remarks, Lion isn't even breaking a sweat. Man, he's incredible. Lion's just completely outmatched. He took down everyone else in a single hit. Another person chimes in. You think it's cause they have the same name. Yeah, our guy is clearly having a rough time. A spectator whispers. I mean, Leon is definitely the better-looking one. But yeah, they're both named Lian. Just then, another sword goes sailing through the air, almost catching the sun. And that's another loss for Leon, someone announces. Leon slumps against a low wall, panting. 3 years, he thinks, catching his breath. It's been 3 whole years since that guy transferred here, and I still can't touch him. No matter how hard I train, he sighs. We might spell our names the same, but that's where the similarities end. That guy and I are from different planets. His face, his personality. Everything about him screams main character in a fairy tale. That whole humble commoner story has to be a load of crap. He belongs in the noble class. Does he get some sick thrill out of constantly getting in my way? Speak of the devil. Leon appears out of nowhere, offering a hand. You all right? He asks, with that perfect smile. Leon just glares. If you were just a total jerk, this would be so much easier, he thinks, letting out a defeated sigh, grumbling. He takes the offered hand. But just then, a sharp voice calls out, Leon. Our hero's face immediately sours. The click-clack of high heels announces her arrival. She smacks Leon's hand away from his. Get away from him. The blonde guy looks completely baffled as the girl turns to Leon. Wait a second. She looks ticked off. You're hurt. Did you pick another fight with Leon? She scolds. Why do you keep doing this when you know you're just going to lose? Leon looks a little uneasy. Chloe, he starts, but she cuts him off. Her eyes fix on something. She snatches Leon's hand. Is that blood? Let me see. I'm taking care of this right now. He yanks his hand away. It's fine. He snaps. No, it's not. We need to clean it first. Look, it's not your problem. Okay, he says, his voice laced with irritation. Stop worrying about me. Chloe just stares, taken aback. With that, he spins on his heel and stalks off, leaving the other two standing there in awkward silence. Hours pass, and dusk starts to settle over the sprawling academy grounds. From a secluded grove, you can hear the steady thwack. Thwack. Thwack of wood hitting wood. Night has fallen completely, but Leon is still out there, relentlessly whacking a tree trunk. Thwack. He slams the wooden sword into the tree. If I just had blonde hair, or a powerful family backing me up, or a teacher half as good as his, or even a drop of noble blood, would any of this be different? He puts everything into one last swing, and crack, his practice sword shatters. He just stares at the splintered wood in his hand, fuming. In the end, all I have is my own hard work. He scoffs. And what good is that? In a world this unfair, there are some walls you just can't break down by trying harder. Then it hits him. Today is Leon's birthday. Of course, they're throwing a massive party for the golden boy of the Royal Academy. He chucks the broken hilt away and slumps down against the tree. Maybe I'll just try my best again tomorrow. I've already wasted 3 years of my life here, he thinks bitterly. What's one more day? He curls up on the ground, burying his face in his hands. Hot tears start to fall. But why? Why do I have to be the one to give up? If it's all rigged from the start, then what's the point of trying so damn hard? He sits up, the enormous moon hanging overhead like a spotlight. Oh, goddess. What's the point of all this? He screams into the night. What's the meaning of my life? Then nothing. Just him, the silence, and the bright, indifferent moon. He instantly feels like an idiot. Yeah, like she's actually going to answer. But then, a brilliant light tears across the sky. It's huge, blazing like a falling star, and it's getting closer. Meanwhile, back at the party, someone asks, "Hey, has anyone seen Leon?" Leon shakes his head. "I haven't." Chloe sighs, annoyed. "No one's seen him in the dorms. I figured he'd show up here eventually." She frowns. "Where could he be?" Thinking about him again, "I see," Leon comments quietly. She completely ignores him, gathers her skirts, and declares, "That's it. I'm going to find him." An older gentleman steps up beside Lion. "It seems your highness has been rebuffed." "Gilbert, don't call me that," Lion warns, keeping his voice low. "Not even when we're alone. If anyone heard you, my cover would be blown. Besides, I haven't earned that title." The man, Gilbert, just smiles warmly. A true royal only shines brighter when faced with adversity. "Happy 17th birthday, my lord. There is only 1 year left," Gilbert continues, "before the royal prophecy comes to pass. On the day a royal of the Clyde Empire turns 18, the reign of the regent who fears the prophecy and props up the current emperor will end. The people will then witness the return of Rodri, the first sacred king." Leon's eyes widen. "You mean the legendary hero, dating back 300 years ago, and let's just say his expectations for the kid are through the roof." The man mused, "We'll see for sure next year. Until then, we just have to wait." There's Chloe, a prodigy who's already mastering 4th-level magic, and then there's Leon, a grinder whose mental fortitude is second to none. He'd love to have both of them on his side. The old man then spoke of a prophecy. "On the day a man bearing the name of a lion comes of age, a sword that vanquishes evil shall descend from the heavens." Right in the center of a massive crater, a sword was pulsing with an incredible light. Leon stared, his whole body tense, thinking, "That's a sword." As he gazed at the stunning weapon, he couldn't help but wonder if it really did fall from the sky. Just then, a voice echoed, "Rise," which, understandably, put our hero on edge. He nervously glanced around and called out, Who's there?" The sword's voice replied, "Am I not right here in front of you?" This confirmed his wildest fear, and he stared intently at the blade. This whole situation was just plain bizarre, he thought. A sword was glowing like the sun and talking like a person. Could it be a holy sword? And as if reading his mind, the sword answered, "That's right." It then added that Leon was the one who had called it to this place. Startled, he blurted out, "Wait, I summoned you?" The sword explained, "Just as you've always felt, the world is fundamentally unfair. The rich get richer, while the poor lose what little they have. However," it continued, "some opportunities must be given to everyone equally. Those who refuse to put in the work have no right to complain about life's unfairness. Only those who burn with a fierce determination are truly worthy." The sword then posed a question. "Are you, Leon, the one who railed against the whims of fate, actually worthy of me?" Our hero shut his eyes, took a deep breath to center himself, and then opened them with a sharp focus. He finally answered with a simple, "Yes." Thumping his chest with a fist full of conviction, he declared, "I am absolutely worthy." The sword seemed satisfied. "In that case, take me. I will grant you the chance to prove it." He thought to himself that he had a pretty good idea of what wielding a holy sword entailed, but with a weapon like this, he might just be able to change his entire destiny. He recalled the man who had helped him when he was at his lowest, thinking about how deeply unfair his reality had always been. Remembering the day's earlier events, he thought about all the relentless training he'd endured, never skipping a single day. Lost in thought, he began to slide down the side of the crater. As he slid closer, he could feel the sword's immense power washing over him. "It's all just unfair," he muttered, realizing that his efforts had never been what people judged him on. He worked himself to the bone to fight against a world he couldn't stand. He refused to let all that grit and determination be for nothing. The weapon's voice rang out again. "Then why are you standing before me?" Leon shot back, "You asked if I was worthy. I'm here to prove that my hard work and resolve have earned me this chance, and it ought to be a fair one." When our hero finally said, "All right, I'm ready," the sword replied, "Good." As a colossal wave of energy exploded from behind him, the sword began to glow intensely and declared, "You have proven your character, hero." Shining even brighter, it commanded, "Now, pull me free." Leon was a bit confused. "Hero? You mean like the one from the oracle's prophecy?" But the sword clarified, "This has nothing to do with any oracle. It is my will alone. Your spirit refuses to bend to noble birth, to family, or even to fate itself. You seek to prove your own worth, not chase after gold or glory. You are the one who meets every condition, the one truly worthy of the title hero. Now draw me, she urged, her light growing almost blinding. This is the right you have earned. This is the opportunity that was granted fairly. With a renewed sense of purpose, he wrapped his hands around the hilt. The weapon introduced herself. My name is Elsid, a clone of the Holy King, Rodri Callas El Vivar. I am the blade that will guide the light of this new age. Now, my master, Leon, let us destroy evil together. A voice from afar mused. So, they've been summoned, have they? A holy sword and a commoner. This is starting to get interesting. He anticipated the question. Wondering why I decided to mess with a prophecy? Well, the name Leon also means lion. It was never exclusive to the royal family. Besides, he continued, the other lion just doesn't cut it for me. He has the talent and the destiny, sure, but he's got no grit. The kid hasn't grown up yet, and seeing as Elsid isn't putting up a fight, I'm guessing she's taken a liking to our Leon, too. Am I right? He chuckled to himself. You don't see that kind of thing happen too often these days. Don't you worry, he said to her. With my inheritance, Leon will be even greater than the last hero. It's high time those scoundrels paid their dues. Now, keep a close eye on the sky. Isn't that your job? Suddenly, our hero's eyes fluttered open. He seemed to be somewhere else entirely. He quickly realized he was in his own bed and thought, wow, was that all just a crazy dream? Still wiping a bit of drool from his chin, he sat up and glanced to the side, and there it was. The beautiful, glowing sword was leaning against his wall. He shook his head, trying to clear it, realizing it wasn't a dream at all. The sword spoke. Allow me to repeat myself. This was the opportunity you were given. He stared nervously at the weapon as it added, and don't get any funny ideas. You won't become stronger just by possessing me. You are now facing challenges far greater than the opportunity I've given you, she warned. Those with great destinies must also endure great hardships. You might have to sacrifice the woman you love or the friends you hold dear. She explained that he had chosen this thorny path himself for the chance to live an extraordinary life. Our hero just blinked. Thorny path? Wait a minute. I thought this was supposed to be an opportunity. The sword seemed taken aback for a split second, but she quickly composed herself, closing her small, single eye on the hilt and said, very well. Then prepare yourself. We head to the training grounds immediately. You will show me your swordsmanship. I need to assess your current skill level before I can properly instruct you. Consider this a test, she stated, making our hero gulp nervously. Looking up at the sky, the sword noted, it's still dark. The sun has yet to rise. Later that morning, Elsid asked, why have you been so fidgety? Leon replied in a hushed tone, because it's morning, we're at school, and I'm carrying a giant glowing sword. I kind of stand out. Elsid seemed genuinely confused by his logic. Leon continued, seriously, what am I supposed to say if someone bumps into me? Oh, don't mind me. Just my talking legendary weapon. His master conceded the point. I see. Even in this form, it may present difficulties. Fret not, I have a solution. Our hero perked up. A solution? Without warning, the sword began to shine brilliantly in his hand. In a flash, it dissolved into pure energy and flowed into the back of Leon's hand. He looked down to see a new, intricate mark where the holy sword now resided. Elsid's voice echoed in his mind. I have done this so you may use your hand as a scabbard. In this state, the mark is visible only to you, allowing me to instruct you at any time. Leon wonders, does that count for when I'm asleep, too? And his master is like, well, sometimes I doze off, sometimes I don't. But either way, she can't do a thing while Leon's out cold. The kid suggests, in that case, I could totally stand guard all night. But Elsid just calls that idea blasphemous. Getting a little fed up, the master tells him, all right, knock it off with the nonsense and just show me what you've got. Our hero admits, you'll probably be disappointed, but the sword reassures him, no, I won't be. That unexpected reply catches our hero completely off guard. Elsid explains that given his circumstances, he did the absolute best he possibly could, acknowledging all the hard work the boy has put in his entire life. She asks, seriously, what kind of teacher would blame a student for something they were never taught? That little pep talk lights a fire under Leon. He focuses, braces himself for the demonstration, and unleashes a massive swing right in front of him, followed by a series of energy-filled blows until he notices something feels different. He's gone through these motions hundreds of thousands of times before, but as he keeps swinging, it dawns on him that this power is only flowing into his hands because someone actually put their trust in him. Then, out of nowhere, Elsid yells for him to stop, making our tense and surprised hero jump. A little flustered, he asks, what's wrong? But Elsid cuts him off, warning, your sword isn't going to hold up like that. And just like that, his sword explodes into pieces, startling him. The fragments clatter to the ground as something else materializes before him, and Elsid asks, "Have you been using this the whole time without even realizing it?" She explains that grinding out the basics is a huge help in mastering it, but she never imagined it would be possible for someone who can't even use aura. Leon just asks, "What? What just happened?" Elsid, however, says he doesn't need to know that just yet, and that his skills won't get any better if he just has blind faith in them. She tells him she'll teach him all about it when he's ready. Crouching down, he realizes there's no way he can use that power right now. Elsid notes that he's trained his fundamentals really well, and she thinks just teaching him how to move his body will be enough for now. Leon asks, "Move my body? Isn't that just swordsmanship?" She retorts, "Oh, so you think you can swing a sword without using your hands?" Which leaves the poor guy feeling pretty dumb. She explains that learning how to properly move your body is the foundation of all martial arts, and even though he's trained hard, this is a whole other league. She announces she's going to test his physical abilities and tells him to start running. When Leon asks for how long, Elsid just says, "Until I tell you to stop," and adds that he needs to follow her commands the instant she gives them. He's going to be running on one leg and even doing handstands. A little intimidated, he thinks to himself that he's a pretty confident runner, but he's definitely never tried to run across the training grounds on one leg or while doing a handstand. And even if he has no earthly idea what the point of all this is, if it'll make him stronger, he's all in. Meanwhile, an observer notes that he's an incredible canvas, one absolutely worth painting on. He'd heard an old saying from the East that described Leon perfectly: a complete vessel, just waiting to be filled to the very brim. And even if he only inherits a small piece of the swordsmanship and experience of the past heroes, he'll, at the very least, become a master swordsman. But after 300 years, he would never let his successor stop at just being a master. Leon should be able to take down a dragon with ease. He figures he doesn't know how tough this era's demon king is, but maybe half of Leon's power will be more than enough. Then she pipes up, hey, what's with that surprised look? I've already made up my mind, so you better pay close attention." For Leon, however, it's going to feel like the gates of hell are creaking open. Back at the academy, Leon is dozing off, his head resting on his hand, when Elsid's sharp tone calls out his name. He jolts awake, sputtering, "I'm listening." I definitely did not fall asleep. Back in the classroom, he's trying with all his might to pay attention, but he's just so drained from Elsid's test. Besides, he thinks, making sure he doesn't miss a single one of Elsid's lessons is way more important. Just then, the sword says, "I've figured out where to begin your training," and asks, "From your point of view, what do you think you're lacking?" Leon guesses, "My swordsmanship, maybe, or aura," but Elsid tells him he's wrong. "It's your eyes," she says. Stunned, our hero just repeats, "My eyes." She then explains an old proverb: eyes, feet, courage, strength. She lays it out that observation is the most crucial skill, followed by footwork, and then bravery. And as Leon listens in utter disbelief, the sword finishes by saying that pure strength actually comes last. But she quickly adds that, of course, it doesn't mean she thinks it's unimportant. It just means the others are a higher priority, she says. There are a few things in that saying I disagree with, but the eyes being the most important, that part is 100% true. This leaves our hero deep in thought about his eyes. He starts wondering if maybe rolling them around would improve his vision, and begins making a bunch of bizarre faces. And Elsid just says, "Now, you're going to learn how to truly see. I'm going to show you just how useless your eyes have been until now." Leon is surprised and clearly confused. On a beautiful day at the academy, the lecture continues to torture our hero while he mulls over how to see. Is this really it? Elsid tells him to look straight ahead, and our hero does just that. She tells him to use the professor at the blackboard as a focal point and to memorize everything for just 10 seconds. So, he tries to focus, noticing the dark blue blackboard, a middle-aged man with gray hair and green eyes, among all the other little details in the scene. "Time's up," Elsid says. "Close your eyes." Our hero obeys, squeezing his eyes shut with concentration. And then the sword asks, how many lines were written on the blackboard, leaving our hero absolutely crushed. Leon protests, "You told me to look at the teacher." But Elsid corrects him, "I said he was the focal point, not that you should only times look at him." He realizes he was just staring at the teacher and has absolutely no clue what was written on the blackboard. "You don't remember?" Elsid asks. "I'm positive the board was in your field of vision, but you can't remember anything about it other than the teacher." And after looking for 10 full seconds, "Two," she presses. "Why can't you remember anything about the board?" Totally defeated, our hero says he doesn't know, but the sword says it's simple. She explains, "It's because you only tried to look at what you thought was important." She says that our eyes are wasted far more than he can imagine. Maybe it's a way to filter out unnecessary information, but most people don't use their full field of vision at all. She tells him to focus on his entire field of view and to memorize every single shape reflected in his eyes as if he were looking at a drawing. Just relax your eyes, she says, and that's how you'll discover how to see more broadly. All right, the next part is doing that all the time, not just for a measly 10 seconds. He figured this would be impossible, but he never expected this training to be a cakewalk, so he couldn't exactly start whining now. Okay, look above the blackboard this time, she tells him. You get another 10 seconds. Leon nods. Right, but as he starts to focus, he can feel other people's eyes on him. The blonde-haired Leon looks over, calling his name with a hint of concern. By the time late afternoon rolls around, our guy looks more like a zombie than an aspiring hero. He's pretty sure his eyes are about to pop out and his skull is ready to split in two. Meanwhile, Elsid is chipper as ever. Excellent. Things are going perfectly. She explains that the strain in his eyes is just because they're dry or he's tensing up too much. But that killer headache he's feeling, that's something else entirely. The pain was coming from his dormant attribute finally waking up and unfreezing itself. She explains that it's basically the same thing as muscle soreness. So, you're saying it's like my brain is sore from a workout? Leon asks. The sword replies, that's the gist of it. A bit different, since brains don't technically feel pain. But yeah, think of it that way. Besides, she continues, suddenly getting a crazy look in her eye, we're going to keep training. He just says he understands. Now, look at that chandelier up there. How many candles does it have? Our hero squints and guesses. 2. But the sword snaps back. It's 3. You moron. What about that guy who walked past 3 seconds ago? Was he wearing glasses or not? Leon replies, he was, and she immediately fires back. Was he wearing a tie? A bit later she asks, the 12th room on the left, was the light on? Our hero says it was. And the one right above it? Leon just stammers out a mix of yes and no. They keep this up all over campus until they finally get back to the safety of Leon's room, where he lets out a massive internal scream. He clutches his face, practically writhing in agony. Elsid comments, pretty decent for the first day. You even get bonus points for not begging me to stop or take a break. Leon groans. And you would have let me rest if I'd asked? The sword replies with a simple, nope. He couldn't remember the last time he'd been pushed this far. His mind felt like absolute jelly. Elsid then lectures, getting too comfortable is just another way of saying you stopped improving. You can only get so far by doing the same old thing. And even though there are benefits to repetitive drills, it's a huge problem once your body finds the easy way out. The easy way out? Leon asks. She explains, your body gets used to the routine and finds shortcuts. That's why switching things up is absolutely crucial. It clicks for our hero. Is that why we did those weird running exercises? The sword confirms it. Yep, I needed you to start noticing things you're not used to. The kid looked thoughtful after that. She continues, explaining that how people train and live actually shapes their bodies, their bones, muscles, and even their nervous systems develop in different ways. Sailors develop an incredible sense of balance, hunters have an internal compass, and nomads develop eyesight that's off the charts. Leon feels like he gets it now. This training was all about playing to his strengths while fixing his weaknesses, and Elsa decided this was the best place to start. The sword lays it out for him. Your strengths are the stamina you've built up, your positive attitude, and your solid grasp of basic sword techniques. And your biggest weakness is that you're too stiff, both mentally and physically, because you've done nothing but the same drills over and over. Leon then asks about aura and swordsmanship, but Elsie just seems to get annoyed. Look, she huffs, swordsmanship is just a fancy word for how you swing a sword. If you can use the fundamentals and adapt them to any situation, that's all it is. Sure, there are some crazy powerful sword styles out there, she explains, then bonks her hilt against his head. But who in their right mind would teach a legendary technique to some kid who's only offering a pinky promise of loyalty? After thinking about it, our hero has to admit, you're right. The sword just watches him, sizing him up. She goes on. And when it comes to aura, there's not much to talk about yet. The other Liam beat you with his aura, right? Imagine the questions people would ask if a nobody like you started using it. It would raise way too many red flags. So, I'll teach you about aura after you've left the academy. For now, you need to master the art of seeing. Feeling determined, Leon pumps a fist. Right, I'm getting totally hyped, but the sword just says, that's not going to be enough. What? The boy asks, confused. She sighs, didn't we just go over this? You'll get used to any repetitive training, no matter how focused you are. She reminds him that he's bound to get bored with the same old methods eventually. Leon starts to get a really bad feeling about this. He stammers, so, what are we going to do? The sword casually replies, oh, nothing major. I'm just going to give you a little punishment every time you get an answer wrong. You won't have the luxury of getting comfortable, and we're starting tomorrow. Leon is filled with absolute dread at the thought. Asterisk punishment. Asterisk Elsid adds, I'm not just bullying you. It's a very effective method called operant conditioning. Your willpower and gung-ho attitude are great, she says, but you still need a little nudge. Our hero stammers a bit, but he knows she's right. If punishment is coming one way or another, he might as well brace himself and just get on with it. Besides, this will build some resilience, right? He thinks. Elsid asks if he's absolutely sure he wants to do this. He gives a shaky thumbs up and says, yeah, bring it on. A second later, a massive scream rips through the room as he's hit with intense pain. Huh, was that really just 5 seconds? The sword wonders aloud as our hero collapses onto the bed, out cold. My bad, Elsid says. First time. So I couldn't get the calibration right. I'll take it easier next time, she says with a grin. Then again, if you keep getting things wrong, I'll just have to crank it up. All you have to do is get it right, and everything will be fine and dandy. Let's give it our all tomorrow, she cheers. Our hero, currently a fried heap on the floor, can only think that this freaking sword is a demon. The sun rises over the academy, and our hero is already out there, pushing himself to the limit again, all with that chatty sword, or maybe it's his spirit, perched on his shoulder. During class, the professor is getting visibly uncomfortable with the weird, intense staring coming from one of his students. He's back in his room, going all out with his training and pushing himself to his absolute breaking point. Outside, Elsid starts quizzing him. How many pigeons are on the dorm roof? And our guy answers, 10. All right, which one flies away first? She asks. He calls back, the 6th one. She then asks, how many pigeons are on the open windowsill? To which Leon replies, there aren't any. That's a crow. Elsid remarks, not half bad, especially since it's only been a month. That crow was tough to spot, but you still barely scraped by. Full of wishful thinking, Leon asks, so, does this mean we can take a break? He's desperately hoping for some downtime after a solid month of this. Out of nowhere, the blonde Leon appears, calling out his name, which completely catches him by surprise and leaves him a bit flustered. A few seconds of awkward silence hang between them. Then, our hero turns to face him with a defiant look and says, well, it's been a minute, Leon. He thinks to himself that he hasn't laid eyes on the guy since his training with Elsid began. Come to think of it, it's probably been 2 weeks since they last spoke. The blonde boy notes, training right after lunch? That's so you. I actually came by because I was a little concerned, he admits. But I see I didn't need to be. Our hero just asks, concerned about what? It's been a whole month since my challenge, he explains. I figured you'd given up like the rest of them. But judging by the look on your face, you seem pretty eager. Leon smirks. Is it that obvious? The other boy smiles back, yep. The expression on the faces of people who think they can actually beat me is totally different from yours. Pleased with that answer, Leon grins. Huh, good for you. So that's why you hunted me down during lunch, then. In that case, why don't you get going now that you said your piece? The blonde boy sighs. Ouch, so cold. It's been a while since we've gotten a chance to talk like this. Why not chat for a little longer? He suggests. Our hero retorts, what is there to even talk about? The other boy just smiles. 10 minutes is all I need. Leon scratches his head, not quite sure how to reply. In the end, he caves and sits down beside him. They sit quietly for a few moments, just taking in the view. Eventually, the blonde Leon breaks the silence. I'm guessing you've heard the rumor, the one about me not being a commoner. Finding the whole thing ridiculous. Our Leon asks, rumor? Huh? Did you really need to bring that up? It wasn't like you were trying to hide it. Should I start addressing you more formally now? That's not why I started this conversation, he clarifies. Think of this as me, the Leon who's hiding his identity, talking to you not as your upperclassman. Our hero is a little taken aback by his words, but he relaxes and says, sure thing. Do you know why I accepted those duels in the first place? The other guy asks. Thinking back, our Leon replies, yeah. He knew the guy could have just said no, without any real blowback. He could have easily avoided every fight without blowing his cover. The duels only continued out of his own goodwill. Annoyed, he thinks. Asterisk. This is just the victor being generous. Asterisk. Just as he's thinking that, the blonde says, we should just end this already, which catches our hero completely off guard and makes him tense up. The disbelieving boy asks, you mean, end it for real? There's no point in dragging this out, the other one says. The next duel will be our last. Pure swordsmanship, no aura, and we'll use real blades instead of wooden ones. The gravity of the proposal hits our hero hard, and he tries to process it one step at a time. With a challenging look, the blonde adds, and if I win the fight, you become my subordinate. Feeling a surge of anxiety, the boy wonders if this is some kind of play to establish a pecking order. He says to the other, this is basically a wager. Then, what kind of guarantee do I have? He asks. This isn't some magic contract, it's just your word. It could be broken anytime. The blonde agrees. If it were anyone else, that would be true. But you, he continues, are an unbending man whose pride got him here, and you'll take me at my word. You're the type to keep a promise, no matter what. Leon confirms the terms. So if I lose, I become your subordinate. The other boy nods, and Leon looks like he's about to say something else. A flash of excitement crosses his face as he asks, "And what happens if I beat you?" That single thought seems to completely reignite his motivation. The other Leon, however, doesn't even flinch at the idea. He simply says, "I'll give you anything you want, so long as it doesn't bring shame to my honor or my family." Grinning, Leon says, "All right, I'll decide on the day of the duel." Deal. As he's walking off, the blonde calls out, "Let me know when you're ready. The location needs prep, so I need to know 3 days in advance." They each turn and walk away with a new sense of purpose. A narrator notes that their moment has finally come. Leon, chosen by the whims of the sacred sword, and Leon, the prince scheming to take the throne. This is where their true battle will finally begin. But something seems off with our hero. He looks a little rattled by all this. Not getting it, the being asks, "What's going on? Are you getting nervous and scared now, after coming all this way? You were doing just fine a second ago," Leon answers. "It's not really that. I just honestly want to know if I've actually gotten any stronger." Elsid seems a bit puzzled by his response. Looking down at his calloused hand, the boy says, "This past month of training was incredibly tough, but I just don't feel like I'm any stronger for it," he adds anxiously. The sword listens quietly, wearing a thoughtful expression. The talking weapon explains, "You might not realize it yet, but you're much stronger now. Because of that, you don't need to worry." Elsid adds that his enhanced perception is a different kind of strength, and that's why he can't feel it. He hasn't had a chance to use it properly yet. But, she says, "I've taken a few other measures besides that." Cutting in, the entity asks, "You have that physical assessment later, right?" The boy agrees. "Just wait," it says, pulling its arm back dramatically, "because something beyond your wildest dreams is about to happen." The entity smiles. "I'll bet you can't even live up to that big talk." A little concerned, Leon has no idea what to expect. A man shouts to a group of boys, "All right, line up according to your numbers. If anyone isn't feeling well, step out now. The rest of you, start warming up." Miserably nervous, our hero remembers that in the last assessment, he was the 9th one called. Even when they test physical skills without any mana, the top spots are always snagged by the nobles. Considering that, hitting 9th place was pretty much the ceiling. When Leon asks what the other Leon ranked, the kid just casually says he's number 1. The sword chimes in that it makes sense, since the blondie obviously puts in the work, though not nearly as much as our hero. Plus, he's in a whole different league than the pampered brats from the other noble families. So, for the short-distance race, they have to do 2 full laps around the field, which comes out to about 800 meters. And in that race, the other guy clocked in at 1 minute and 20 seconds. Our Leon, on the other hand, finished in 1 minute and 40 seconds. That 20-second gap is exactly why the other kid is considered untouchable. But the sword, brimming with confidence, tells him not to psych himself out before he even starts. After all, our boy's got her on his team now. As he lets that sink in, he agrees to put his faith in Elsid. The two of them get ready to race. "Ready, set, go," the evaluator shouts, waving the flag. All the students blast off the starting line, each one determined to be the fastest. But one of them is clearly not messing around and goes all out, leaving everyone else completely stunned. Even the blonde Leon is just standing there with his jaw on the floor as our guy rockets past the entire group. He's pushing himself to the absolute limit, holding on to first place. The kid is moving like that famous blue hedgehog. A girl with a stopwatch starts yelling for him. She shouts out that Leon finished in 1 minute and 29 seconds. He's absolutely ecstatic, while his biggest rival is suddenly looking a little rattled. The evaluator walks over and asks if he's learned how to use aura, but he says no. The man presses him, wanting to confirm that he really didn't use any. He takes the boy's arm, and it feels like he's scanning his mana flow. Leon figures the guy is pouring mana into him to check for something, knowing full well that if he was times using aura, a test like this would snuff it out immediately. The man looks shocked, realizing our hero really hasn't learned it yet. He still can't wrap his head around how much he's improved in just a few weeks and asks what kind of training he's been doing. Leon just sheepishly says he's been sticking to the basics and actually taking more rest days. The instructor thoughtfully flips through his records, noting that the boy's training regimen used to be borderline insane. He wonders aloud if maybe his body just got stronger from all the rest after years of overworking it, but then quickly dismisses the thought as ridiculous, while the other students just stare with pure envy. Even blonde Leon looks pretty uneasy with how things are playing out. Our hero quietly whispers to Elsid, "Okay, what on earth just happened?" The sword coolly replies that things went exactly as she said they would. Leon, practically pleading, begs the sacred sword for some answers. But before getting to that, she asks him a question. Biologically speaking, where do you think real strength comes from? The young man answers, "From your muscles, right?" Elsie explains that in this world, most physical training is all about bulking up, but that's only half the story. She continues, saying that your muscles are all connected to your nervous system, and the amount of power they can unleash depends on how well developed those neural pathways are. Because of those neural connections, pure strength isn't just about how ripped you look. Leon is struggling to process this, thinking to himself that he's never heard anything like it in his entire life. Muscle density is determined by genetics, and there's a natural limit to how big your muscles can get, a limit our boy had already hit thanks to his brutal training. In short, Elsid concludes, I focused on training your nervous system. He replies that he sort of gets it. Still baffled, he asks how she even did that, saying he never did any training like that and wondering if she did something to him in his sleep. The weapon reveals that it was all part of his punishment, and he's just left completely floored by her answer. For a second, he retreats into that private mental space where only he and the sword can interact, standing stock still while everyone else just wonders what's wrong with him. So that's why his muscles ached so much. It was because something dormant inside him had been unleashed. And the excruciating pain he felt every time he failed the vision training, that was all part of the process of developing his nervous system. The hero asks why Elsid didn't just tell him this from the start, and the sword bluntly replies, because you would have gotten all depressed about it. Leon just makes a weird, unreadable face. As he listens to the sword explain that mastering the vision training was his only escape from the pain, he suddenly remembers a conversation with one of his teachers. Then he flashes back to another moment with a fellow student, realizing that hearing the reason for his punishment made him understand why he had to go through with it. Elsid adds that if he hadn't gone through all that, he never would have been so laser-focused. Finally, she drops a heavy hint for him to say thank you. I just did what needed to be done, and I feel fantastic now that everything is going so swimmingly. Leon starts to wonder if she isn't more of a demon sword than a sacred one. He even questions if the sword truly holds the soul of the great hero Rodri, and if so, maybe Rodri was actually the villain all along. As if snapping out of a daze, the boy hears the other students erupt in cheers. And yep, just as you'd expect, the blonde kid just broke his own record. The boy shoots a smug, triumphant look straight at our hero, who glares back with pure annoyance. And hey, you can't blame him. He came in second place and still couldn't beat his biggest rival. It would have been a miracle to surpass him in just 1 month, and he knows he shouldn't be too down about it. But deep down, it still stings a little. Even so, Leon, who used to be stuck somewhere between 1st and 9th, had just skyrocketed to the number 2 spot. He feels a rush of excitement, thinking to himself, I can win. No, I times will times win. Back in the dorms that night, all ready for bed, the boy asks what kind of training they'll start tomorrow. Elsid tells him that the vision training was about way more than just memorization. She says there's not much more they can do for his physical stats right now, so it's probably better to get some real-world experience. The boy agrees, adding that it's tough to do that in a real fight. And for that very reason, the sword suggests they should sneak out of the academy. Leon's eyes light up. Wait, you can teach me swordsmanship. But the sacred object is quick to shoot that down, saying, in your dreams. She explains that to even begin learning swordsmanship, he has to master aura first. Once he does that, the fundamentals will be more than enough to get by. Without aura, martial arts are just a bunch of cheap parlor tricks. Look, secret techniques are only a problem the first time you lay eyes on them. Once someone figures out your moves, you're easy pickings. And honestly, do you really think the other Leon would fall for such amateur hour tricks? So what am I supposed to do then? He asked, completely frustrated. Elsa just calmly replied, you have to channel your emotions. Thinking back on blonde Leon's victory and his own record-breaking time, the sacred object mused, a blade forged through countless hours of hard work holds true power. Your physical prowess is now on a similar level. At this rate, not even your main rival will be a match for you. After a dramatic pause, the sword added, eat my shorts. She stated that what he really needed was actual combat experience and then asked if there was anyone around who was just dying to pick a fight with him. He immediately shut that line of thinking down, convinced there was no one like that at the academy. The next day, however, his talk with Elsid was still bouncing around in his head. Out of nowhere, a voice called out, hey, are you the commoner named Leon? A group of boys was watching him from the top of a staircase. As he focused on them, he noticed a crest on one of their uniforms and realized they were nobles. How in the world did a commoner take second place? One demanded angrily. They were positive he had used some kind of cheap trick that even duped the instructor, but they insisted that they wouldn't be so easily deceived. Leon thought to himself how incredible it was that you could find jerks like this absolutely anywhere before he addressed their issue with the rankings. Our hero suggested that the group should take their complaints to the instructor if they were that unhappy, which left the trio sputtering in disbelief, wondering how a guy like him had the nerve to speak to them that way. The guys shot back, asking how they were supposed to know what kind of stunt he pulled, pointing out that he hadn't even sworn loyalty, and that him getting ninth place to begin with was already suspicious. They claimed his true nature was finally showing and demanded to know which family was secretly sponsoring him. Leon noticed they weren't paying the slightest bit of attention to what he was saying. The hero figured they never had any intention of actually talking things out. In their view, he was just an annoying weed that they wanted to pull. Another person emerged from behind the group on the stairs. The newcomer advised them not to get upset, adding that even if the boy was a commoner, they were all fellow students at the same academy. The crowd that had gathered to watch the confrontation showed clear signs of admiration. Lord Elman explained that nobles refer to the punishment they dish out as maintaining their dignity. After finishing his speech, he asked the others for their opinion, and they eagerly agreed, remarking that it was exactly what one would expect from the pride of the Bourbon family. Elsid mentally asked if this was their leader, and if he was from a prominent family, to which our hero replied that he was the second son of the Bourbon house. This was the guy who had always placed second in the physical exam. He was probably just salty that Leon had taken his spot. The old story of nobles picking on the weak and the weak pushing back against them never changes. Elman said it was a pity that his first meeting with Leon had to be under such circumstances. The young man said our hero might feel this was unfair, but that nobles couldn't simply let such matters slide. He held out his hand and said, "I hope you'll accept our proposition." The boy replied that he'd like to hear the proposition first. The other nobles seethed at his response, but Lord Elman quieted them with a single gesture. Elman proposed that they hold a series of matches, all properly supervised by an instructor. With a defiant look in his eyes, Leon realized this was how it was going to play out. The two of them exchanged deceptively calm smiles. It might have seemed like the noble was making a generous offer by involving an instructor, but our hero knew he was at a massive disadvantage. Since Elman never added a condition banning the use of aura, it was obvious he planned to use it to his full advantage. He understood that if he tried to object, they would just twist it to make him look like he was trying to deceive the instructor. He also knew that even if he refused the duel, they would find some other way to drag his name through the mud. Leon turned his head, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. His eyes met those of the blonde Leon in the midst of the onlookers. Our hero knew that the other boy could probably get him out of this mess. A moment later, the young man clenched his jaw. He knew, thoughtfully, that depending on his rival for help would be no different from begging. And picturing that humiliation, which would be far more intense than their current taunts, Leon accepted the challenge. Raising his eyebrows, Elman seemed mildly surprised that the boy took his offer. In response, our hero demanded that Instructor Helmet supervise that they only fight one person per day, and that they promise to never doubt his abilities again if he won. He then looked the noble square in the eye and asked if he could accept the counter-offer. Leon suggested this because the Academy's infamous demon instructor could spot a trick a mile away. Coincidentally, as his name was mentioned, the man himself felt his ears start to burn. In the end, the Lord agreed to his terms. Our boy didn't really care who supervised the fight, but he did think it was a shame he wouldn't get to beat them all to a pulp. Back in his dorm, the boy complained that the jerk had such a smug look on his face, and that he never thought this was how he'd get his real battle experience. Elsid noted that, purely from a results standpoint, it was a great outcome. After a bit of hesitation, Leon asked if the sword thought he could win without being able to use aura. The sword bluntly said probably not, since he'd never fought an aura user before. Then the sacred object seemed to have a stroke of genius and asked if she should show him a way to make things a little easier. Not really following, the boy just asked. What? Incredibly excited, Elsid snapped her fingers, saying that this particular method should be the simplest way. A screen then materialized in front of our hero, showing his name, his level of -18, a couple of skills, and a class listed as Hero, No Aura for You Edition. A little stunned, he asked the sword what it was, and she replied, "What else would it be? It's a snapshot of your current abilities." Then she switched the screen and announced, "And these are the stats for that brat, Elman." She then explained that she put them together using his own standards, so the numbers weren't exactly objective. Shocked, our hero asked if that Elman kid was actually that pathetic. He argued that as the second son of a count, Elman should have been downing every elixir under the sun and getting all kinds of special training. But Elsid explained that even if you take a ton of elixirs, if you can't properly absorb them, you just end up average. And his training regimen, she continued, is nothing compared to yours. Most people would assume that without aura, you'd hit a ceiling at E rank with just 99 points. However, she said, her tone full of admiration, because of your insane training and your ridiculously fast growth, you can shatter that limit completely. Elsid added that with her support and his own grit, he could totally take on those goons even without aura, which honestly caught our hero by surprise. He asked, "You mean I won't lose on a purely physical level?" And figured if that was the case, then things were fine, just like Elsid said. The sword just sat there, quietly waiting for him to figure things out. Our hero decided then and there he was aiming for the very top, not just settling. There was no way he'd ever lose to a chump like Elman again, his face set with fierce determination. But he couldn't help but wonder why the terminal displayed his title as the hero who still can't use aura. To that, Elsa just said, "If you don't like it, then get stronger." It was a beautiful day, just outside one of the gates to the academy. Our hero was just walking through the halls when someone called his name. Looking over, he saw his instructor watching him. The man commented, "You seem to have changed a lot in just 1 month." He added, "I was prepared to step in if you were acting foolishly, but it looks like you have things under control, wouldn't you say?" Our hero just played it cool and replied, "I'm not quite sure what you're referring to, sir." With a smile, the man said, "Playing dumb, are we? Well, just do your best," leaving Leon more confused than ever. Elsid, totally pumped, told him to go teach those idiots a real lesson, then asked if he understood what she meant. And this time, it finally clicked for Leon. As he stepped into the hall, he saw it was already packed with students. He walked forward with a look that meant business. The moment he entered, a scowling kid yelled at him, "How dare a commoner like you make me wait? You act like the rules don't even apply to you." Completely ignoring the outburst, he looked at the instructor and said, "I'm ready to begin." To which the man simply replied, "Very well." The instructor then announced, "Both of you will be staking your names and your honor on this match, with myself as the witness. Jeff Heinrich, what do you wish to gain from this contest?" Fuming, the boy spat out, "I want this peasant to confess to his crimes," while our hero just stared back at him with a dead serious expression. Helmuth then turned to Leon, asking, "And what do you want from this match?" The boy simply stated, "I want this to be the last time he ever bothers me." The instructor clapped his hands together and said, "All right," he instructed them, "both of you, take 2 steps forward and get into your stances." Chloe and Leon watched the match start, thinking he was at a major disadvantage since he couldn't use aura. Even a wooden practice sword can cut you if it's infused. Elsid asked our hero if he wanted to look at the other guy's stats, but he said no. He explained, "It's fine. No matter how strong he thinks he is, he's just one of Elmon's cronies. There's no need for me to rely on your power for someone at his level." But then, out of the blue, the other kid just bolted across the arena, screaming as he charged at our hero with his wooden sword raised. Leon analyzed the attack, thinking, he's coming in with a diagonal slash from top right to bottom left. It was such an obvious move that he figured it had to be a feint and decided to wait. So, he held his position, watching the blade descend toward his head, and a single thought crossed his mind. Man, why is this guy so slow? With a lightning-fast counter, he dodged the strike and cleanly bopped the kid on the head. The move made the instructor's jaw drop and sent a wave of fear through the other boy's friends. Even Chloe and the blonde Leon were completely stunned. Heinrich just stood there, frozen solid with a red mark on his forehead, drooling and shaking a little. Feeling a bit uneasy, our hero glanced back, wondering what that kid's problem was. To his complete astonishment, the boy then toppled over and hit the floor like a sack of bricks. As Leon wondered if it was really over that quickly, the boy on the ground groaned in pain, struggling to get a word out. Pushing himself up with immense difficulty. He snarled, "Don't think you won with that lucky shot. I just messed up." Getting angrier by the second, he yelled, "Let's go again. You're gonna fight me one more time." The instructor stepped in. "Jeff Heinrich lost. I will not permit any more of this disgraceful behavior." Our hero just smiled and said, "All right then." That simple response seemed to shock both the boy and Helmuth. Heinrich let out a harsh laugh. "For a commoner, you sure know your place." Leon's smile just grew wider. "Fine. I won't go easy on you this time." Something inside the sword spoke to him, saying, "Try not to end it in one hit this round." As the two of them faced off again, the instructor gave the command to begin. Elsid commented, "This is your first time using vision in a real battle, you know. Considering I volunteered to be your training dummy, you should know that one-hit knockout was just you being merciful." So, our hero replied, "Got it." At that moment, the other boy charged recklessly at Leon again with another over-the-top swing. Our hero parried the attack effortlessly. Focusing, he put his vision training to use and realized the guy was practically moving in slow motion. He could see the movement of his arms, his legs, even the darting of his pupils, allowing him to predict his every move. Elsid explained, "Because you've figured out his tells, you can anticipate exactly what he's going to do next." Heinrich kept on attacking, and our boy continued to defend with ease. But this time, something was different. He noticed the wooden sword actually sliced off a tiny bit of his hair. He realized Heinrich had started using aura, but even with that power-up, he could still read his movements perfectly. The boy screamed maniacally, "Try your best to dodge these attacks," Elsid commented. To think he'd go on such a reckless offensive against someone who just wiped the floor with him. What an amateur. He doesn't even know how to manage his stamina during a fight. While defending, Leon thought to himself that even enhancing your physical skills with aura has its limits. After blocking another strike, our hero saw it. He realized he found a clear opening and attacked without mercy, landing a solid hit on the boy's leg. The kid definitely felt that one and became even more enraged. Heinrich then leaped back, putting some distance between himself and Leon. Clutching his injured leg, he screamed that his opponent was an idiot for not finishing him off when he had the chance. He boasted that an attack like that would never be enough to take him down, but a split second later, something felt off, and he was pummeled by a relentless barrage of hits. Elsid asked our hero what he thought, and Leon replied, "It's just like you said. If you want to train vision, a moving target is the best way to do it." As Heinrich struggled to get up again, he desperately yelled, "I give up." Instructor Helmuth announced, "The winner is Leon," and the spectators erupted in cheers. Well, everyone except for Heinrich's cronies, who looked both scared and nervous. Later that night, people were buzzing about whether they'd seen the duel between Leon and Elmond's whole crew. One guy said, "I had no idea Leon could fight that well. He took on every single one of them, starting with Jeff, and they all lost so badly they had to be sent to the infirmary right after the fight. So, it all came down to Elmond, and everyone was wondering if he was really about to lose to this guy." Elsid scoffed that the other opponents were a total cakewalk, all fancy fencing with no real substance. She couldn't believe they passed for high-level fighters, even with aura. But our hero had a feeling this match was going to be different, and the sword agreed, reminding him that he couldn't let his guard down against Elmond. When Leon walked into the arena, Elmont was already there, radiating a serious aura. Elsid noted, "Well, look who decided to drop the arrogant act," and our boy had to agree. Leon knew that with his aura fired up, Elmont was physically stronger, and he remembered a detail the sword had brought up on the status window earlier. It was a skill called Sword Vision, but since it was only at level 1, he figured it wasn't going to be a massive game changer. He knew that the scariest moves are the ones you don't see coming, and he worried his special vision might not be enough to read Elmond's playbook. Looking pretty pleased with himself, Elmont commented, "I didn't actually expect to get a turn." Our hero just calmly shot back, "Oh, really? I knew we'd end up here." That comment clearly got under the guy's skin. He figured this Leon would be the perfect practice dummy to warm up for his duel with the other Leon. And even with his impressive physical skills, he knew he was at a disadvantage once aura entered the equation. If Elmont could channel aura into his very sword, trying to block with a wooden practice sword would be just plain stupid. Realizing this, Leon wondered if he should just bait him instead of fighting head-on, right as Helman yelled for the match to start. The second he did, a blast of energy zipped right past our hero's face, catching him completely off guard. A small nick appeared on his cheek, making him wonder if that was sword energy. Across the arena, Elmont pointed his glowing, aura-infused sword right at our guy. Leon began to think he might be in over his head. The speed gap between them was just massive. His opponent settled into a stance, his aura practically crackling with menace. Our hero thought to himself, "Okay, so he's a total scumbag, but he's also a direct heir to a Count's family." With a smirk, Elmont said, "No wonder the others lost to you. If you were just some cocky commoner, I'd have flattened you by now. But," he continued, "it's another thing entirely if you're someone worth recruiting. Consider joining my side, and we can forget this whole silly feud." Just then, something came speeding toward him. Dodging by a razor's edge, our hero's sword grazed Elmont's face. As they reset their positions, a matching cut appeared on Elmont's cheek as he growled. "You, absolutely furious now," he shouted. "You're the arrogant one, just because you picked up a few useless skills." Our hero just smiled. "Is that so?" In his mind, an offended Elsid screeched, "Useless skills." She then called out to Leon, who replied, "Yeah. Did that little weakling just call my technique useless?" She fumed. A bit startled, Leon tried to calm her down, but she just said, "They say mountains and rivers can change in 10 years, and yet, after 300 years, I'm getting dissed by some bedwetting brat." Leon felt a threatening aura suddenly surge from his sword. "You see that kid with the shiny white teeth?" she demanded. He stammered that he did. "Let me tell you, there is no greater insult to a teacher than getting lectured by a student, so if that boy still has all his teeth by the end of this fight, you're the one who'll be punished." Our hero thought, "Well, 1 or 2 won't be enough. Then, guess I'll have to take out as many as I can." Elmont looked taken aback by Lion's sudden surge of fighting spirit. What's with this sudden vigor? And with incredible agility, our hero launched himself forward. He unleashed a storm of attacks, forcing the other guy to defend for his life. Helman himself was shocked by the sheer power of the blows. In the crowd, people murmured that Elmont was being pushed back, but the blonde Leon shook his head. "No. He's on the offensive, but Elmont hasn't been forced out of the ring." Back in the arena, our hero was thinking this was rough. He was pushing himself to the limit, all because of his opponent's blasted aura. Up in the stands, blonde Leon observed that if this kept up, it would just become a battle of stamina. Full of rage, his opponent complained, "You're just so persistent. You should have stayed on the ground." Ready for another round, our boy shot back. Look who's talking. He prepared to use his vision to compensate for what he lacked in raw strength and speed. This power let him anticipate his opponent's moves, and Lion figured if he could just see the attack a split second sooner, he could overcome his disadvantage. He needed to read the movements more precisely, more quickly, and with a wider perspective, until suddenly everything around him seemed to slow. "This is nuts," someone yelled. "It's like they're fighting underwater." Our hero seemed to block an attack moving at the speed of light and then settled into a stance that perfectly mirrored his opponent's. Thrilled, our boy knew his plan was working. Elmont, even angrier, cursed at him. "You're telling me you really can't use aura?" The examiner couldn't detect any aura from the hero, either, and was stunned he'd managed to push his opponent so far. With a wicked smile, Elmont said, "I can't believe you're forcing me to use this against you." A really bad feeling crept over Leon as he wondered what was coming next. Elmont activated a new power around his body and his sword, and our boy recognized it as arcane fencing. He was seriously annoyed, as if this guy wasn't enough of a handful with regular thrusts, stabs, and slashes. Focusing his own power, our hero knew he couldn't waste a single moment. As the other man moved in to strike, Leon's vision screamed thrust, and he knew he could dodge it. Elmont came at him with full force, and our hero sidestepped it perfectly. But then something happened after the strike that he never saw coming. That attack was a feint, a technique designed to work only if the opponent dodges. Morbin's secret technique followed up with a direct blow to the torso that was guaranteed to hit the ribs on a dodge, and you can't exactly fight with broken ribs. Even though his vision showed him the true path of the sword, he had no way to escape it. "I'm going to get hit, and I'm going to lose," Leon thought. In that instant, his eyes blazed, and his hair stood on end, making him look like a certain famous legendary warrior. As he internally screamed, "Move!" our hero seemed to plant his feet so hard into the ground that his clothes ripped from an intense surge of power. But that power was just to launch himself straight up and over his opponent. Elmont looked up, completely stunned and disbelieving what he just saw. From above, our hero brought his sword down hard, landing a blow that Elmont definitely felt. Leon zips behind Elmont, who just stands there, completely dumbfounded that he actually got tagged. He shoots daggers at Leon, absolutely fuming. From the crowd, someone pipes up, "He only got his left arm, though. Is fighting one-handed against two really gonna work out for Elmont?" But another spectator chimes in, "Who cares about the arm?" The real shocker is that the Bourbon family's famous arcane fencing actually got beaten. Meanwhile, Elmont thinks to himself, "This isn't over. I can still use both my hands for a frontal assault, and that's where I'll have him. And when I do, all these aura-powered strikes are going to push that flimsy wooden sword right past its breaking point." So his new game plan is simple: break Leon's sword. He charges forward, yelling, "You've been dancing right in the palm of my hand, you commoner." With a clean upward swing, Leon connects perfectly, sending Elmont's sword flying out of his grasp. The kid just stares blankly, like his brain hasn't caught up yet. The very next second, he catches a brutal blow right to the mouth. The impact sends his head snapping back, and a couple of his teeth go flying. The audience erupts in cheers. Chloe is absolutely beaming, so happy for her friend. Looking quite satisfied himself, Helmut officially declares Leon the winner. A bit later, Elsid comments, "Great work out there. He got taken down by a supposedly useless technique. I bet he'll be a little more careful with his words from now on." Leon muses, "You think getting beat just one time is really going to fix his attitude? Still, we made an oath about whoever won the duel, so it should be fine." But Elsid says that's not it at all. She was actually stunned by something else, which leaves Leon totally lost. She explains, "You just unlocked the gateway to acceleration. You're improving at a rate that's way beyond my expectations." "Not getting it at all," Leon just repeats. "Acceleration?" Elsewhere, Helmut is picking up teeth off the ground, thinking, "Man, he definitely knocked out a fair few of these." A little while later, Leon is walking through the halls, massaging a sore shoulder. He asks Elsid, "Hey, so that acceleration thing you mentioned, was that what happened when I was dodging Elmont's arcane fencing?" She explains, "You know how sometimes your mind works faster than your body can react? Well, in a state of acceleration, your reflexes kick in before you even make a conscious decision. It has nothing to do with how fast you're actually moving." So, she asks, "How do you think highly trained swordsmen are able to move so incredibly fast?" Leon replies, "It's because they've learned to use their aura, right?" Elsid tells him, "That's only part of the answer. Without aura to reinforce you, your own body wouldn't be able to handle the power. That's why, typically, only a handful of people ever manage to learn acceleration, and it's always after they've mastered aura. But you," she continues, "you managed to use acceleration before you even started using aura. Sure, you only used it in your legs, and it was an incomplete version, but that's still incredibly impressive. It means," she says, "that you instinctively broke through your own limits using nothing but sheer force of will. A smile slowly creeps onto Leon's face as he says, "Huh, wait a minute," he asks. "But didn't you just say my body shouldn't have been able to handle that power? I feel perfectly fine. Is that just because the execution was incomplete?" "Something like that," the sword confirms. "If you had used it with your entire body, your insides would be soup right now." Leon, suddenly looking worried, asks, "Doesn't that seem a little dangerous?" Elsid then says, "Well, it should be about time. For now, you should probably take care of your body." A confused Leon asks, "What are you talking about? What time?" he questions again. Then, out of the blue, he's hit with a crippling wave of pain from the after effects of acceleration. The sword deadpans. "What do you think?" "Delayed muscle agony, of course," she says. "And you should count yourself lucky that it's only hitting you now. Don't you dare use it again until you've learned to use aura, or you will actually die." Clutching his body in pain, our hero grits out, Okay, I get it. Just another day here at the academy." Leon is walking through the campus, and it seems like he's the center of attention. Some girls start murmuring as he passes, and pretty soon, it feels like everyone is whispering about him. One person whispers they heard he was some kind of experiment, force-fed elixirs. Another one claims he's secretly a living weapon from the royal palace, hiding his true identity. Just then, he bumps into the same group of guys he defeated, and it all clicks. "So, you're the one spreading all these crazy stories." Elsid adds, "They'll invent any excuse to justify losing. So much for the famous pride of the nobility." Leon retorts, "If they had any real pride, they wouldn't have ganged up on me to begin with." "That's a fair point," the sword replies, just as Leon seems to spot someone. Standing right in front of him is Chloe, looking at him with a gentle smile. "Hi, Leon," she says. A little taken aback, Leon just says, "Chloe." A little later, they're outside. Leon smiles and asks, "So, how have you been? Wait, aren't you supposed to be in alchemy class right now? Are you cutting?" Chloe just calls him an idiot and asks, "Why on earth would I be skipping?" She explains that the teacher was sick, so class got canceled. "Did you really think I'd skip just to come see you?" she teases. She goes quiet for a second, then smiles. Leaning back on a bench, she says, "Something's changed," leaving Leon looking puzzled. Then she asks, "Have you been avoiding me lately?" And then, completely out of the blue, you start getting into fights with a bunch of nobles. "Do you have any idea how worried I've been?" Leon is taken aback by her concern. He lowers his gaze, thinking. Even as she's gently scolding him, he's struck by how much time has passed and how natural it feels to be talking with her so openly. He thinks to himself, that's it. Now I think I finally understand how my past self felt about her. How envious he was that I got to be the one standing here with her. He was completely overwhelmed by an inferiority complex, always believing there was nothing special about him at all. He remembers how much he hated this world, where all his hard work got him nowhere, and how he turned all that frustration inward on himself. Then he recalls the day the sword appeared, telling him it would give him the chance to prove he was right. Chloe continues, "After all those fights, you're the talk of the entire school. There are even rumors that you only got so strong because you found some kind of magic sword by chance." The girl looks over at him for a moment, and her eyes widen when she realizes he's crying. She looks a little surprised and flustered by the sudden tears. She tries to smooth things over, asking, "Hey, what's wrong? Why are you suddenly crying?" "Those are just stupid rumors, and I guess mentioning the sword was going too far." Leon manages to say, "It's not a magic sword or anything." Chloe just continues to look at him, her face etched with worry. He thinks to himself that even though Elsid can be incredibly rude and has a pretty terrible personality, she was the one who pulled him up when he was at his lowest point. Meanwhile, Elsid wonders to herself, when did he suddenly mature, even if it's just a little? Leon thinks, if a hero is someone who saves the world, then Elsid is my hero. He resolves then and there, I'm going to become a hero every bit as capable as the one who wields the sacred sword, and I'm going to shatter every expectation Elsid has for me. Chloe just stared, completely baffled. The guy admitted that he really didn't get what was happening. All he did was have a conversation with a girl, and somehow he matured a little. He wondered, is this something a guy who's been perfect since birth is even supposed to understand? The sword chimed in that she couldn't care less about the reason, only that Liam was finally starting to look like someone worth training. Then, completely out of the blue, our hero was hit with a wave of chills and goosebumps, causing his friend to call his name in concern. Later that night, back in his dorm, he was just lying there, lost in thought. He mused that he really had changed. He recalled Chloe telling him he seemed so much better now, which had left him confused. She'd explained that he wasn't so on edge anymore and seemed to be looking forward. She mentioned he was starting to look like Leon, but with a key difference. It was like one was always looking up, while the other was looking ahead. Her words caught Liam by surprise, and he found himself wishing he could just talk to Leon every now and then. He didn't have anyone in his circle he could be truly open with, who would just stand by him. So, he just mumbled, "All right, I'll see what I can do," before curling up in bed and whispering an apology to Chloe. Sorry, he thought, I just don't think I can pull this off. He was convinced their next duel would be their last. Meanwhile, somewhere else, the blonde-haired Leon stared out into the night, thoughtfully murmuring, Liam. The following day, a loud crash echoed as someone slammed into a training dummy. It was our hero, standing over the splinters of yet another broken wooden sword. Elsid marveled that even a brand-new practice sword couldn't hold up. It wasn't just his skill. His training was so intense that it was putting way too much stress on the blades. A practice sword is naturally flimsier than a real one. After all, Liam explained that he pushed himself to master a move because a trump card is something you can only play once. He knew that a genius like Leon would figure out a counter in no time if he tried the same trick again. His plan was to master Leon's techniques, get inside his head, and completely overwhelm him. Elsid asked if seeing Leon's status window a few days back had really gotten under his skin that much. The terminal had displayed Leon's stats, level 25, a long list of skills, and the exalted swordsman class, a true prodigy with both natural talent and a noble background. He asked aloud if an intermediate aura user could even form an energy blade. He pointed out that Leon could already reinforce his entire body with aura, putting him above the instructors and at a level most elite knights don't reach until their 30s. Liam analyzed the stats, noting that while he was outmatched in strength and agility, he had a slight edge in stamina. He thought to himself that Leon was definitely a formidable challenge, and a grin spread across his face. He declared that Leon wasn't some unbeatable monster. That's the right attitude, Elsid said, promising to help him out with as much advice as she could. She told him to build on that confidence and get ready to win, which made our hero look totally pumped. But then he called out to Elsid and asked, Hey, just suppose. What if I lose to Leon? What are you going to do then? The sword was taken aback and flatly refused to answer. When Liam asked why not, she simply said it was part of his test. Didn't I tell you from the start? She reminded him. The trials you'll face will be far tougher than any opportunities you're given. Feeling a bit overwhelmed, he asked if this wasn't a little steep for a first trial. Elsid replied that this single fight could be the defining moment of his entire life. She promised that if he managed to beat Leon, she would explain everything, and once he heard it all, he'd finally understand why. The day wore on with our hero training relentlessly, right up until the sky darkened and a heavy downpour began. In another part of the academy, someone remarked that the results were better than expected. A man commented that he always knew the others weren't half bad. Leon stood at a window, watching the rain and admitting to himself he never thought he'd actually defeat Elmont. Leon turned to Sir Gilbert and said, It seems you're finally acknowledging the outcome, reminding the older man how skeptical he'd been of his earlier assessments. The old man chuckled, saying that was 3 years ago, which isn't long for the truly gifted, especially since he'd just bested the second son of a count. He then shared that he'd received a message from Liam earlier that day, simply stating that he was ready. The old man's eyes lit up. At last, he breathed. The young man then said, Sir Gilbert. He wanted to ask for a favor, thinking, I'm going to crush Liam and make him my knight, without a doubt. As the rain hammered against the academy, his thoughts drifted to Chloe. Our hero was walking down a hallway when a massive bolt of lightning lit up the sky. A bit nervously, he muttered that it felt like the heavens themselves were gearing up for his fight. Elsid replied dramatically, A hero is about to bet his entire future. Of course, the heavens are paying attention. The instructor announced Leon's timely arrival, and our hero couldn't help but notice how eerily quiet it was. The instructor explained that Leon had specifically requested it. It seemed he wanted 0 distractions for this fight, a far cry from the usual public matches. Elsid scoffed that the show-off Elmont had wanted to embarrass him in front of a crowd, making our hero chuckle nervously. The man added that with no audience, there would be only a single observer present besides the official witness. Our hero immediately asked who it would be. Ah, I see, the sword said, seemingly figuring it out. When our hero asked if she knew who it was, she guessed it was probably Chloe, a revelation that sent his anxiety through the roof. Why would it be her? He asked, his voice tight with tension. Elsid sighed, saying Liam really didn't have a clue what was going on. She explained that since Leon believes Liam has a crush on Chloe, he's using this duel as a way to push her towards him, noting it's a classic tale of a king and his loyal knight vying for the same woman. That's when it clicked. He remembered Leon's condition that if Liam lost, he'd become his subordinate. The realization infuriated him as he thought back on his interactions with Leon sitting under that tree, the terms of their duel, especially the part about him having to serve Leon if he lost. It all made sense now. Having Chloe watch was the perfect psychological play. Leon was drawing a bold line in the sand, establishing who would lead and who would follow. It was a cunning and meticulous plan, exactly the kind of thing Leon would do. And naturally, This whole scheme completely ignored how he or Chloe might actually feel about it. He'd had his suspicions before, but now he was certain Leon was a top-tier noble, through and through, model. So, this guy is the type who plays mind games and messes with people's emotions. It's a classic power move, one that makes it clear he sees everyone else as beneath him. He's getting pretty ticked off, wondering if this is really what it means to be a noble. If so, it leaves a seriously bad taste in his mouth. Elsa notices our hero's fists are clenched tight, points out that he's angry, and Leon's just like, "You bet I am. I never should have done this," he thinks. "Now I'm going to have to teach that fool a lesson." Over in the combat arena, the two Leons face off before their judge. The blonde one, with a grin, says, "You're late." With a look of pure determination, our Leon replies, "No, you're just early." Looking around, he asks, "So, where's the observer? I heard you called someone." The man smiles and says he's somewhere they can't see, adding that it wouldn't be fair if he got distracted and made a mistake, as that would just become an excuse. Our hero, smirking, asks, "Oh, is that really how it is?" All fired up, he says they should get started right away. But the blonde Leon holds up a hand, pulling out a small jar and taking out a pill. And just like that, he swallows it. Our hero, completely baffled, asks, "What in the world did you just eat?" He explains it's an aura-suppressing pill, because even though he promised not to use his aura, it might activate on its own, which would be a problem. Our Leon looks a little on edge about that. The instructor hands him his weapon, and he asks if they're ready to begin. The two opponents square off, ready for action, and our hero thinks to himself that the other Leon is completely serious, a huge change from his usual laid-back self. But when it comes to pure focus, he's not about to lose either. Helmet gives the signal to begin, and the swords clash in the arena, with the noble Leon attacking and our hero on the defensive. He seems a bit tense, maybe even a little nervous. Meanwhile, the other guy charges right at him. He then unleashes a volley of quick strikes, all of which are skillfully deflected by our hero. Our boy thinks, "Okay, I definitely overestimated my own strength. I won't last 30 seconds if I keep taking these hits head-on." Without a moment's rest, the noble rushes him again with full force. Still tense, our hero just manages to block the blow. A little shaken by the situation, he thinks the noble's sword moves like a whip. He's quickly realizing that this Leon is in a completely different league compared to Elmont, and on top of that, there's something else going on. Our Leon is using Rodri's vision, but the noble's image is blurrier than any opponent he has ever faced. He knows he needs to get a grip. The gaps in the image will have to be filled in by his memories of their many past fights. As the boy continues his relentless attack, an impressed Gilbert wonders aloud if this is really just a duel between students. Helmet, equally amazed, thinks that even without using aura, their fencing skills might actually be better than most knights. Our hero has a simpler thought. He's strong. A total monster. While the noble Leon is wondering when this guy got so strong, Gilbert continues to watch the fight, completely mesmerized by what he's seeing. He thinks to himself that he always knew his lord was a genius, but he never dreamed Leon would be able to keep pace with him. The noble keeps hammering our hero with attacks, who suspects this next one is a double feint. There's something more to it. Pushing his vision to its limits, he finally gets a read on the pattern and lunges forward at the exact same time he's being attacked. A moment later, there's a fresh gash across our boy's chest plate, but it's the noble Leon who's in shock, watching a lock of his own hair float through the air, sliced clean off by his opponent's sword. Our hero resets his fighting stance as strands of blonde hair drift down onto the arena floor. The noble seems slightly annoyed as he checks his new haircut. Our hero catches his breath, wondering why Leon's attacks after that first one didn't have the same power behind them. Then, a look of worry crosses the noble's face as he realizes our hero intended to drag this out into a battle of stamina from the very beginning. He watches him calmly control his breathing. In the next moment, our hero cracks a smile, just as the blonde Leon wonders if he's walked right into a trap. The two opponents lock eyes across the arena. Our Leon's plan is simple: get in close, drain his opponent's stamina, and then slowly turn the tables in his favor. It's a tactic that leaves absolutely no room for error, a strategy with nothing flashy about it at all. The noble thinks he can feel an incredible will to win coming from him, and he knows he has to break that spirit first. If he can't do that, he'll never be able to make him submit. The noble suddenly starts using one of his techniques. Gilbert, at the table, is stunned, thinking, he's using quick steps. That's a secret technique from the imperial family he's using right there. Our hero, feeling the pressure, recognizes it as a technique that uses muscles and blood flow to let the user push beyond their physical limitations. The noble thinks that even though it's not the complete technique since he can't use his aura, half of its power should be more than enough. Our Leon digs deep too, cranking his perception up to the absolute maximum. His opponent then charges at him with a devastating strike, but our hero manages to fend it off. The noble thinks, that cut was too shallow. Did he actually dodge that? Clutching his injured arm, our hero wonders if that was really the quick steps technique and if he's truly not using any aura. Elsid whispers in his ear. He didn't use aura. Our hero jumps, startled, but quickly calms down and asks, "Are you serious?" And the sword explains that the human body is much stronger and faster than he imagines. It adds that while there are techniques for strengthening the body like quick steps, there are also others that boost pure strength and endurance, so he shouldn't be so quick to judge. But in the next second, his opponent is already on top of him, ready to strike again. Annoyed, he shouts, "How dare you get distracted? And why do you look so calm?" Sensing the attack, our hero shoots back, "I could say the same to you. Are you only just now using your secret swordsmanship?" Our Liam thinks, "Calm? Are you kidding me?" He knows his rhythm was completely thrown off by Elsid's sudden interruption. He remembers Elsid's words about not judging things by common sense, right as he feels a sharp sting on his cheek. And in the next moment, it hits him. No, he thinks, Elsid didn't interrupt me at all. He then plants his feet firmly on the ground. While his opponent is focused but visibly tense, our Leon realizes he's only 5 or 6 steps from the edge of the ring. He's been getting pushed back this entire time. In that moment, our hero's entire demeanor changes, becoming far more intimidating. Gilbert, who is still in a state of shock, thinks the whole atmosphere has shifted, but that there shouldn't be any way to break through Leon's level of quick steps. Our boy had always thought there was only one way to win this, and that was by weathering the storm of attacks. To protect his small stamina advantage, his entire strategy was to wait for his opponent to wear himself out using quick steps, since what the other guy had was explosive acceleration, not lasting power. With a smirk, he scoffs and says, "This isn't fun." The noble boy looks tense and completely confused. And so, our hero begins to truly focus. All he could rely on was the strength he built with his own 2 hands. And from where the young noble stood, Leon had never looked so massive. A huge grin spread across his face as he thought, "That's right, this is the real me." Deciding then and there to make him his subordinate no matter what, he launched himself forward with quickstep one more time. The man figured that spamming an ability like that without aura should have pushed him to his absolute limit by now. Elsid, however, looked like he was thoroughly enjoying the show. The noble Leon steeled himself, thinking that if he was a true hero, then a little pressure like this was nothing. Our hero's mind flashed through all the moments they had shared. "Leon," he thought, "you have no idea what the fundamental difference between us really is. Is it the boy born with natural talent, or is it me, the guy who swings his sword every single day?" Outside, the storm continued to rage, with angry bolts of lightning splitting the sky. Undeterred, our hero charged his opponent, who met his advance with equal determination. With a tremendous crack of metal, a sword shattered and went flying through the air.